Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board Flight to Youth 22. We are currently first in line for takeoff and are expected to be on air in approximately 20 seconds' time. We ask that you please fasten your seatbelts at this time and turn off any distractions as your full attention is highly appreciated. Before we begin, let us first correct our niyat lillahi ta'ala and open both our hearts and minds. Thank you for choosing Legends Airline of Kasan. We hope you enjoy your flight.
Ding! Breaking, Lebanon. Massive destruction caused by an Israeli airstrike in Bani Hayan village, southern Lebanon. Ding! Another notification. Borne bulletin. Scouts clear 250 kilos of trash from Sungai Liang beach. Ding! Kolkata doctor. Found gang raped and murdered with broken pelvis. Ding! Caption. Just listen. Footages of a fetus found outside of his mother's womb, umbilical cord still attached. Not yet ready to be born. Sometimes you don't choose the stories that come to you. Sometimes the first step you take to be involved in social justice is just finding a cause you gravitate towards. It can be a story you come across on Instagram. You see the headline and you pause a little longer than usual. As your eyes outline every letter on the screen, you can't help but hold your breath. You cannot believe what you're reading. Then you read again, as the feeling of dread settles deep down in your gut. Sometimes that's all it takes to start. According to scholars in the field, the term social justice was first used in 1840 by a Sicilian priest. At the end of the 19th century, the term social justice was used by social reformers as an appeal to the ruling classes to attend the needs of the new masses of uprooted peasants. The experts argue that the meaning of social justice may vary according to different definitions, perspectives, and social theories. They say that most conceptions of social justice refer to an egalitarian society that is based on the principles of equality and solidarity, that understands and values human rights, and that recognizes the dignity of every human being. They say globally, the most frequently quoted expression of the founding principles of social justice is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was endorsed by the international community in 1984. On 10th December, in Paris, the United Nations General Assembly adopted an extraordinarily groundbreaking and important proclamation, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This milestone document, made up of 30 articles, sets out for the first time the fundamental human rights that must be protected by all nations. It is a pioneering achievement in the wake of the Second World War and continues to provide a basis for international human rights law. The full text of the document is reproduced in a book written with a foreword by Amal Clooney. Amal Clooney is a British human rights lawyer and humanitarian advocate. She said, "There are few historical developments more significant than the realization that those in power should not be free to torture and abuse those who are not." Assalamu alaikum and hello listeners. Today you're with me again, Hana Najwana from the Proofreading Department. We are exploring a very similar, if not a continuation, of the previous episode you had with me. In this one, we will be discussing together the ways young people like us can initiate and sustain social justice movements, and I will be sharing 3 main points. The first point is to know who you are signing up for, is to know the voices you are amplifying, is to know the deep history and context of the native or indigenous people you want to represent, is to understand the perspective of the victims or voices of the oppressed. Here's a little list of questions you can reflect on. First, What is the historical context of their oppression? How does their experience differ from my own lived experience? What systemic barriers or challenges do they face in their daily lives? How can I amplify their voices without speaking over them? What assumptions or biases might I hold that could cloud my understanding? How can I educate myself further on this topic, on their specific struggles and needs? By reflecting on these questions, we can develop a deeper empathy and a more nuanced understanding of the oppressed groups we aim to support. It's crucial to approach each situation with care and nuance, recognizing that every story and experience is unique. The people we are standing up for, each and every one of them, have their own goals and dreams they want to achieve with their lives. They each have hopes, passions, desires, and dignity. The least we could do is not make them feel like their dreams are put in graves. There is a poem that beautifully and painfully explains this. The war will end. The leaders will shake hands. The old lady will still wait for her martyred son. And that woman will wait for her beloved husband. And those children will wait for their heroic father. I don't know who sold the homeland, but I know who paid the price. Mahmoud Darwish wrote this. He was a Palestinian poet who captured many souls by bleeding on blank pages of paper. The next thing is to find your community. There are many local organizations that are trying to tackle our social issues, and we just have to know where to look. Instagram can be a good place to start. One example that can help kickstart your research is Bleed Safely. Bleed Safely, that's their handle on Instagram, advocates for menstrual health. They aim to raise awareness on period pain and endometriosis. They believe that menstruation is a normal, healthy part of being female and that there is no need to be ashamed or feel embarrassed about it. They strive to address taboo issues like menstrual hygiene to empower women to share their stories and bleed safely. Remember, we've touched on this a little bit earlier. Every story is unique in its own way, which is why, like any social problem, each one should be approached with nuance and care. This is the purpose of having a community. That is to be deeply engaged with the people you want to stand up for, physically and emotionally. Being in a community gives you a sense of identity. You know that saying that goes, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. It's the same thing. It is important to have a support system that you trust as a way of ensuring that there is something you can fall back on when this work starts to exhaust you mentally and physically, which it will. And there is nothing wrong with that. Great work takes time and sacrifice. WeCare.bn recently hosted a humanitarian camp focusing on next generation heroes and the importance of unity in action. You can stay up to date by checking out their Instagram account. Even though the camp has probably ended at this point, there is still a lot to learn. The last thing is less of an action. It is to practice empathy. I think empathy is very self explanatory, but there's one thing I would like to remind myself first and foremost before everyone else. Your attitude, your response to very sensitive issues should not be glossed over. If it brings anger, rightly so, show your anger. But your response should also not be disrespecting in any way towards victims or anyone involved. Empower and lift and not just sympathize. I think everybody knows this analogy. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. This is the end of my episode. The three main steps to start your social justice journey are these. Understand the people you're amplifying, join your community, and always practice empathy.